Cantrell. I'm the treasurer for the Dakotas chapter of the Studebaker Drivers Club. I'm also on the national board. So here today we're in the 10th Car Show 2026 in the Monument in Rapid City, South Dakota. We have quite a lineup of Studebakers and Packers today, and I'm going to take you through the lineup and we'll talk about each car as we go down along the line. So first off, we have a 1961 Studebaker Silverhawk. It's owned by Perry Myers out of Nebraska. Perry restored the car. I don't know if Mike can zoom in on the placard down here and show you some of the pictures of what the car looked like when Perry got it. But he's taken it from that to this. It's a 4-speed car, V8, which, I mean, I know they made quite a few, but they didn't. People seem to be more interested in the automatics because everybody could drive it. But this car still being a 4-speed is kind of neat. It does have some unusual features, things that I haven't seen on a lot of Studebakers. One thing that I really like is this single mount antenna in the middle of the deck lid. I think that's really classy. I like that a lot. Got a really pretty blue interior. Now, a little bit of history on the Hawk line. They came out with this car in 1953. And they basically ran it for 2 years, 53, 54, and then they changed the nose in 55. No tail fins in those first 3 years. 56, they had a Power Hawk that had no tail fins, had a Silver Hawk with a small fin, and then we got to the Golden Hawk, and the Golden Hawk being the premier car. So this particular model is a 1937 Studebaker Dictator. Now this is a pre-war car, and the word dictator didn't have the negative connotation that it has today. When Hitler took over Germany in the late 30s, he became a dictator, and that became very negative to us to use that word. So this was kind of the end of the line for the dictator name, and eventually they changed it to the president, which is what we use for a term. But this is a very, very nice car. These Dictators were very classy. They had 2-door sedans, they had 2-door coupes, and then they had 4-door cars. This being a 2-door coupe, does not have a back seat, but it has an incredibly long trunk. The trunk basically goes from the back of this seat all the way to the rear of the car. So it wasn't real high, it's kind of a fastback there, but a lot of room back there. Had a inline 6, should have been a 221, 3-speed manual transmission. Very, very, very good riding, very solid cars. A little later in this demonstration or this video, you're going to get to see a 1938 Studebaker Coupe Express, and that was built on the Dictator chassis. Studebaker was looking for a lightweight delivery vehicle. They had their big trucks, they had their 1.5 tons and their 2 tons, but they needed something to run the grocery order from the grocery store down to the Widow Jones at the end of the block. So they needed a light duty truck for that. They didn't need a 2-ton truck. So Studebaker said, we're going to fill that niche. So they cut the cab off and they closed it in back here. And then they used the same frame and they put a box, they put a small bed. So it's kind of like a very early El Camino. And when we go down and you get to see the car, you can see what they did. But this is the car that the Coupe Express was built on originally. This Dictator chassis. So continuing on with our lineup of cars, this is the 1938 Studebaker Coupe Express pickup that I was just referring to of the 37 Dictator. Now in 38 they had a different nose. They decided that this pickup thing might actually work out, so they had redesigned the Dictator, had a different cab, and they used a longer box. So they used a longer wheelbase Dictator chassis to build this truck. Some of the unique features of this, they had a lot of one-year things on these cars. The 37 Dictator had transmission that the shift tower was in the top like a conventional transmission would be. Studebaker thought, we need to have a lot of floor room. We need to be able to put 3 passengers in this vehicle if we need to have it. So they redesigned the transmission, they turned it sideways, and they put the shift tower right in the middle of the case of the transmission. Not on the top like you'd expect, right in the middle. And that was how you shifted your 3-speed transmission. Novel idea, very flat floor, not so practical. Didn't work out as good as I think they hoped it would. They only did that for 1 year. And then in 39, they decided they would go back to the top loader, but they also laid it on its side, and then they built this intricate linkage to make it shift. Also didn't work out very well, and then they abandoned that idea altogether after that. Share the same engine, of course. I've had a lot of people ask me here today who chopped the top. not chopped. That is 100% original. All the sheet metal on this car is original. This is the way they built the car. Some of the features I like to point out, and this was a pickup in 1938. I don't know if your camera can bring this detail in, but you see how they curved all this, and then they rolled this fender up and they brought it down to a point in the back. I mean, that's a lot of style for a pickup. You don't see that on vehicles today. These cars had class. So, other than that, they really worked out well for what they were designed for, but Studebaker only carried it for 3 years. And then they went to, in 1941, they came out with the M Series truck. Then World War II happened, production stopped, came back and started building them again in earnest in 47, and then did it for another year, and then in 49, go to the redesigned truck again. The next car in our lineup is the 1934 Packard Straight 8. This was the ultimate luxury right here. These cars were incredibly heavy, incredibly well built, but they also had lots of power. With 8 cylinders, they had lots of bottom end torque and good pulling power. They could do highway speeds at will without any problems.
No guarantee will make it faster.
The car weighs well over 5,000 pounds. I mean, it's just, you think of luxury, you think of Packard. And this car exemplifies that. I know Mike will go around and he'll take some photographs of this car. Now, of course, in this era, Studebaker and Packard were not merged, but that came later. We include them in all our events. The really nice thing about our show this day is we have 2 34s. We have a 34 Studebaker and we have 34 Packard. You can see the similarities, but you can see the differences. And they're both beautiful cars in their own way. We're really lucky to have them side by side in the same show. Not something you see every day. One thing I would like to personally point out is on this side of the car, if you're a Studebaker Packard aficionado, you know this. But this particular door right here is so you can put your golf clubs in there. When you go out to Pebble Beach or to the local golf course, you have a place to store your clubs. And of course, this car is also equipped with the classic mother-in-law seat, or better known as a rumble seat in some terms. But that's what the joke is the mother-in-law seat. So if you were lucky enough, or unlucky enough, depending on your point of view, to have to ride in the rumble seat, you had 2 steps. Step up here, step here. You would step in on the upholstery. Wouldn't want to do that today, but that's what you had to do. And there's a generous amount of leg room in there. But then what a lot of people don't realize is that back window rolls down so you could communicate. Now, if your mother-in-law was yelling at you too much about going too fast, you just roll the window back up. So you didn't have to listen to her. I'm not recommending that. I'm not saying anybody ever did that, but it might have happened, you know. But it sounds good. So, okay, well, because we had a rumble seat, you had to have a place to put your luggage. You could put some small items in there, but they'd be quite difficult to get things out of it. So this back here was where you would store your trunk or your luggage, if you will. This folds down. We took the liberty of undoing it so we could show in the video that you put your steamer trunk on there, and off you go on your trip. Now, then when you get there, you put it up, fold it back up into place, reattach the screw. So the next car is a 1934 Studebaker Commander Regal Coupe. This is a very, very beautiful car. Pretty much the 34, one of the top of the line cars. It has this ornate front grille with the wide arching fenders, and of course the bird hood ornament, the driving lights, the headlights. I mean, everything about this car is just class. It was a very, very nice car. It has, both these cars have dual spare tires. The roads weren't very good, tire technology wasn't very good, so if you were out traveling long distance, you needed tires in case something happened. Another feature about this car that you don't see, I mean, it was kind of popular back in those days, was a suicide door. Not very safe. If something happened, the door flew open, you try to grab it, it'd suck you out of the car. That's why they call them suicide doors. But not a very big cabin. Again, very, very small. People were smaller back then. You didn't need as much room. No back seat. No rumble seat on this model. This has a very large trunk. We're carrying lots of luggage inside. No luggage rack on the back. Everything went in the trunk. Also has a flathead 6. Same basic engine that the Dictator and the Coupe Express had. was a very common engine for that era. Probably a 3-speed transmission. I guess I'm not 100% sure on that, but my guess would be in 34 it would have been a 3-speed. This car started out in a field, unrecognizable if even what it was, and in 2.5 years, this is what it looks like. It's just a beautiful recipe. Okay, the final car in our lineup tonight is a 1963 Studebaker Avanti R2 equipped car. This car was originally sold in Schenectady, New York. It made its way out here to basically, it's in Nebraska now, down in Kimball, Nebraska. Beautifully restored. I don't think it was a full-on restoration because it didn't need a full-on restoration. I should say meticulously brought back to all its former glory. Stu does a wonderful job caretaking this car. This particular model has an automatic transmission. You could get them either way with a 4-speed or an automatic. Has the Paxton supercharger. In 1963, they set 29 land speed records, different records, in Bonneville with this car. They had women driving, so they'd set a speed record with a woman. They would have different categories, and they went out and they ran. The most famous record for the Avanti, because this was not a showroom car, the one that they were running on in Bonneville, but it was race prep by Annette Granatelli, and they ran 100. There's some confusion whether it was 173 or 178 in the standing mile. Irregardless, 173, 178. That's incredible in 1963. I don't know if I'd have the guts to run one of these cars that fast with the steering, the suspension, and the tires that they had in that are on salt. I mean, that's all. So, urban myth, not really sure. Legend for sure that if you were doing 120 miles an hour and you open the windows, you blow the back window out because it's so large, it would trap so much air. It was held in with rubber and one screw. The screw basically held the stainless on, so it would blow the back window out. Heard the story over and over and over again. Don't know if it's true. Probably there's some truth to it, or it wouldn't have become a legend that it is. But as you can see, the hood open reverse, very aerodynamic. No air intake on the front at all. People always question about overheating. That could be a problem with the Avantis, but it also made them faster because the air wasn't going through; it was going over. And you look at your NASCARs and your race cars; they all have very, very limited air intake on the bottom of the car, and nothing really in the center because you want all that air to go over. So they're very aerodynamic. A lot of people joke you couldn't tell whether it was coming or going. Kind of true. The styling of this car was unique. Back in this era, everything was jet age. Everything was about the jet aircraft. Jets had been out for a while, but we were starting to fly more. We had fighter aircraft that was very sleek, very, very, very fast. So they took a lot of styling cues from the jet aircraft era. And the dashboard is more of a cockpit than it is a dashboard. If you come in and look, I'll take the liberty to open Stu's car. If you look at the way the instrument panel is laid out, and then you look at the heater controls, they're very aircraft styling. It's very, very much like aircraft. And if you look up into the ceiling, you'll see the heater and the light switches are actually on toggles up in the ceiling like you would be in an aircraft. You also had some styling for the wife. In the glove box, there was a vanity with a mirror so she could apply her makeup when you got to where you were going, so she could fix her face, make sure her hair was just right before you went in for dinner or to church or wherever you were going. So they had some features and some style that who would have thought that you'd have a vanity like that in a car. Now, a lot of cars had a mirror on the sun visor, but the place to store your cosmetics, that's pretty cool. Car also has a factory built-in roll bar. It's completely padded. Again, because it's a fiberglass car, you need the extra safety, but the car was such a high-speed car, they wanted that roll bar in there. So if you're ready for your final ride, this is the way to go. This is a 1954 Packard Henley conversion Hearst. These were built from the 20s through basically 54, 55 was the end of the run. When Packard would build this vehicle, it was what we would consider a commercial chassis, or a cabin chassis is the terms they use today. So they would have built the front end The engine, transmission, all that would have been in there. The frame was here. They brought the A-pillar up to this point, and it did not continue on from there. There was no windshield, but the steering wheel, the dashboard, and the front seat were all in the car. So the car was drivable. You could start it and drive it in and out of the factory or on and off the transport trucks so they could get it to the coach builder. Once the coach builder received the car, then of course they added the roof, they added the doors, they added the hydraulic features that are in this car. This was a three-way car. It was hydraulically controlled. When you would pull up to the church, depending on which side of the road you were parked on and where the access to the church was, you could go out the right, the left, or the back. And it was done with these levers right here. It was all done hydraulically. This lever would level the car so that if the car was kind of leaning to one side or the other, your casket would not take off and go skidding across the parking lot. We didn't want that. That would be bad. Families get very upset. So this car in its day had power windows. I mean, it was just hydraulic. Well, it's still power. Yeah. These are hydraulically operated. They're not electric. Has a straight 8, 4-barrel carburetor. Car would maintain highway speeds with no problem, but you needed that big of an engine because the car weighed well over 8,000 pounds fully equipped. There's so many features to this vehicle. I'm going to step out a little bit here. There's this particular thing. It's a beer. The casket would sit on that. And of course, these little rollers would aid in the rolling. This would tip and come out. And then you'd have your cart, and you would just roll the casket off and onto the cart and take it into the church. And if you were loading, you could do the same thing. It's front, side, or back. Either side or back. If you notice, like the religious kind of related lights, or even looking at cathedral lights that you would find in a church, which is pretty cool. And of course, you have your curtains. So if you wanted it to be closed, you don't want people to look in, you could close the curtains. The high roof line would allow for large flowers displays to be on top of the casket. So you wouldn't have to worry about crushing any of the flowers. Lots of storage underneath here. Your spare tire was here. There was no room underneath the chassis because of all the hydraulic lines that operated all these different features. It had to be stored someplace, so they're all under the car. So we're here at the back of the hearse, and everything was thought through when they designed this vehicle. They've got built-in storage for everything. The church cart that you would roll the casket out onto and then take it inside has to be stored someplace. So they built it in right here. Folds right up and goes down into that small space right there. The one thing I noticed and I hadn't really thought about, but there's a door handle right here to get in from the inside out. So if your buddy slammed the door on you when you're cleaning the casket or the hearse after a service, you could get yourself back out, because I don't think those side doors open from the inside. So anyway, you wouldn't want to spend a night in here. You had to have a way out. But just a well thought out vehicle. That's why they were leader in the field for so many years. They just were the best at hearse building. But they also built, as a side note, ambulances and coroner's cars and other things like that. So it wasn't just hearse. They had quite a background. Yeah. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about on this new hearse is the engine compartment. Now, this is 100% accurate underneath the hood. We have a flathead straight 8. Everything's pretty standard, whether it's a 6-cylinder or an 8 or a 4-cylinder even, when it comes to the engine configuration and layout. One thing that makes this car unusual is the hydraulics. Now, we talked earlier about how all the three-way and the not self-leveling, but the ability to level the suspension is all done hydraulically, and that was added by Henley. The actual Packard car came equipped with that little starter motor and a hydraulic reservoir underneath. That's a hydraulic pump. That ran the wiper motors and the windows and the seat, the adjustment on the seat. So everything was done for you in the car of this luxury, in this class. Just a beautiful, beautiful car. Now, this was the very, very last year for the flathead straight 8. In 1955, they went to an overhead valve V8, and then they started running Paxton superchargers on them to get more performance. So they really came to life when they went to the V8. They became a high-performance car in addition to a luxury car. Almost forgot, one of the very unique features of Packards is the swan. All the Packards of this era had this beautiful swan for hood ornament, and that was very, very unique to their cars, and you could identify a Packard from a mile away by that bird. So wanted to make sure you got to see that before we finish this video out. Okay, and to close out our video today, I want to thank you for joining us and listening to our presentation. Hope you enjoyed this. If you've enjoyed this content, we want to invite you to our annual Labor Day event. It's in Custer, South Dakota every year on Labor Day weekend, and our car show is always held on Sunday on 6th Street in downtown Custer. So if you're anywhere in our area, it's well worth your time to come out and see us and see these beautiful cars in person. As a special note, this year we're hosting the North Central Zone meet. Same weekend, same dates, but a lot more cars, a lot more people, a lot more excitement. So if you're anywhere in our area, please come out and join us. It's a free car show. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to talk to you about our cars. Ask any of the owners any question you got. They'll be happy to spend time explaining it to you. So if you'd like to join us on that weekend, not just as a spectator, but as a participant, you can go to our Facebook page or our website, and that will be listed below. The dates are the 4th, 5th, and 6th of September, and there'll be lots more information being posted online about that, how to get an application or an entry, I should say, and you get where to send it, and all that good information will be online. If it was built, owned, designed, driven, and anything to do with Studebaker Packard, we welcome you. If you got a wheelbarrow or a wagon, we welcome you to bring it. We've had original Studebaker wagons in our show. We've had people bring their horses and give rides. I'm not sure the Custer Chamber really liked that, but we did it one year. So we're welcome to anything Studebaker related, or like I say, if it was in the family, and I don't want to miss any particular brand, but if it was in the family, please bring it out. We'd love to have it. Come join us. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you in Custer.